So, your current relationship, are you dating a straight man?
Yes.
And they have no idea that you went through a transition? Welcome back to Other People's Lives. I'm Joe Santagato.
I'm Greg Dybec.
For anyone out there that would like to be a guest on our show, don't hesitate to reach out to us. Our email is oplpodcast@gmail.com.
Today, we're speaking with a guest who reached out with the email subject line, "My boyfriend doesn't know I'm trans." And we're going to be chatting with her about her decision to transition and why she feels that she has to hide the fact that she's trans from her boyfriend, from her job, and other people in her life. So we've got the guest on the line, and thank you so much for being on today.
Hi, of course. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course. So before the call, you actually shared a ton of photos with us. You showed us pre-transition photos when you started taking hormones to present day. So kind of gave us a picture of your journey. But can you just tell us what ultimately led you to your decision to transition?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd say, so when I was born, it was your classic story of, I wanted to be a ballerina on Halloween. Like I would stand in the girls' line when they, I thought I was a girl. I had parents that were very religious. So the idea was always like, that's not really an option. So I guess I was always kind of bullied for being too feminine. When I was in my early 20s, I went through some traumatic experiences that made me really want to like man up and convince everyone that like I was. My sexual orientation is heterosexual now. Like at the time I was a gay man. So I guess the mentality was always that like, oh, I want people to think that I'm not even gay. And that worked. Like I was really into rock climbing. I had a really good body. Like people were always surprised to learn that I was gay. And I basically, I tried to picture, okay, like if I'm a guy, like what's the best life I could live as a guy? And I essentially achieved that. And I realized I was still living a lie, like in order to have people like me, and I had to sacrifice my authenticity. So I couldn't be, when I was just relaxing and being myself without like consciously analyzing all my behavior and actions, it was like I had to play this part of a, who other people expected me to be. And if I was just being myself, people would have this mentality of, oh, like you're trying to shove it in our face, like you're being obnoxious, you're being, and I'm not trying to be anything, like I'm just kind of being myself. And I believe I was about 25. This was 2018, 2019 that I first started to kind of get the idea that, something wasn't right. And that like, I basically was realizing that like, in order to be myself, that like, I had to be a completely different person than the person I was presenting myself as. And I took about a year to realize, when I first had the thought like, okay, I have to admit to myself, like I am a woman. I had to kind of spend about a year, like, just, being like, all right, make sure that you commit to this. Like, are you ready to, cause as far as I was concerned, like there's not really any going back. Like once you go through the changes and the surgeries and, so I was, just kind of, I took about a year, and after a year, I came out to my parents and my family. Initially the goal wasn't to, hide, or like, I looked very masculine. So I never thought in a million years I would ever look like, someone that people would perceive as a woman. So I was kind of approaching it completely differently. But once I started hormones, I had a very different experience than the typical, transitioning experience.
Did you,
So,
when you said you came out to your parents, did you come out as gay, or you came out essentially telling them that you wanted to transition?
oh yeah, no. So I was completely out of the closet
Oh, okay.
as a gay person. My parents were very accepting. They always like loved and accepted me. And when I came out as a female, obviously they were concerned and they were, you know, uh, like they were worried. Most of the people I told, I remember I told my best friend at the time, and she was like, "Oh my God, like she knew me in high school, so she was like, you went through hell in high school, and finally you're like cool and you're hot and you're this and that, and now you just want the world to like treat you like shit again. Like, why are you doing this?" So they were obviously concerned. Like, are you sure you want to like take this on? But ultimately they were supportive. My family, not my we'll get into that later, I'm sure. But
Yeah. And like just the photos you sent too. I mean, it's interesting to hear that story now, because you kind of sent before and after photos to us, and the before, yeah, like for lack of a better term, you're like shredded and like, look like an athlete, or like, facial hair, like kind of all that. But so it's interesting to hear that you were at a point where you were essentially forcing yourself to kind of live this identity that you weren't comfortable with. And when you were doing that, was the goal to present as straight, or to just like still, like you said, you were out. So was it just to just present more masculine in general, even as a gay man?
totally, yeah. I mean, I was I guess trying to dispel the stereotype that like all gay men are XYZ, which is funny because growing up I was totally XYZ. I was, if I called someone on the phone, I would always get referred to as ma'am up until I was 18, 19. I actually didn't even hit puberty like I was supposed to. I basically was like really skinny, but I had like man breasts. Like I would get made fun of if I took off my shirt at the pool. Like I was always very feminine. I sounded like a woman. I was petite. Like people, especially growing up, like it's like one of the ways they'd bully me in school is like they would throw me in the girls' bathroom and like hold the door closed. And now they're trying to do the opposite, like keep me out of the women's bathroom. So it's a little ironic, but like the goal was always to present as like I would tell people I'm gay, and I would act like, oh yeah, I don't care if people think I'm straight, but like deep down I was always like, haha, I got you. Like you thought that I was like a regular bro, and like here I am, this I was kind of proving wrong the people that like referred to me as slurs and bullied me my whole life growing up.
It's like, I'm gay, but I'll kick your ass and then climb that mountain.
Yeah. Kind of, yeah.
So after your transition, we're obviously going to get into the point where you start dating. So can you kind of talk about your first experiences with dating after your transition?
Yeah. So, I was always very upfront in the beginning. You saw what I used to look like. Like I was very, no one ever thought like I would pass. I remember like in my head, I was thinking like, oh God, like I hope that someday people look at me and they question if I'm a boy or a girl. Like like that was my best case scenario, was like, I'll never look like a woman, but like at the very least, I'll, not look like a man, like I guess that was kind of initially my mentality. And when I started dating, like, I didn't date anyone, obviously, like in the very, very beginning.
Also, just for context, like how long is that, I guess, transition period, in the sense that you said you were taking hormones?
So I was taking hormones for about 6 months at first. And then after 6 months, so here's the weird thing, right? Is after 3 months, I had already reached female levels of hormones. So normally that's a process that takes years, and a lot of, depending on like your genes and your biology, it usually takes a while to reach the hormone levels, even if you're taking the medication. For me, my baseline was already like not normal. I didn't have normal male hormones. So I hit female hormones in 3 months, and within 6 months, I started looking like completely unrecognizable. If you refer to the pictures I sent, I think I sent so I sent pre-transition, and then I sent hormones without any surgery, and then hormones and surgery.
Mm-hmm.
And before the plastic surgery, within 6 months, I was shocking people when I told them I was a male. Like, I didn't look until they heard my voice. I mean, I've done a lot of vocal training since then, but within 6 months, I ran into like an old roommate at the gym, and he had no idea that it was me. Like, so the transition happened very quickly. And that's because it turned out that I had 2 X chromosomes. When I was born, the endocrinologist had the suspicion that I was intersex when she saw my baseline hormone levels. And, you know, I didn't have this confirmed until a year later, but basically I was born with something called Le Chapelle syndrome. It affects 1 out of every 20,000 people identified as male at birth. And that's basically when you have an SRY mutation on one of your X chromosomes. So that was basically why I transitioned so quickly, was because I had, the way hormones work is like they don't just randomly go around your body, like making you more feminine. Basically, they bind to receptors all over your body and every cell in your body. And they change the expression of your epigenome. So, which is basically just your DNA. But I know everyone loves to go to the like, oh, we have XX and XY, but they never talk about what chromosomes are made out of, which is chromatids, which is half of a chromosome. And then within that, you have the actual genes. And hormones work by expressing the same female genes that someone born female would have. And having 2 X chromosomes, I guess I had more to express. So within 6 months, I went from looking very, very masculine to looking literally unrecognizable. And that was a huge, shock, but also just, it's very difficult adjusting to people treating you like a male and then treating you like a female and not having support or like, a plan to kind of deal with that and deal with how different, you're basically living in a completely different world.
Yeah. So what can you talk about that? I guess just the lifestyle change, and to kind of circle back to Joe's question, like the dating aspect, like, so you transitioned quickly, and I guess quicker than you even imagined or doctors would imagine. So, what was it like, I guess, getting out there now as a woman? And do you remember the first time you kind of formed a relationship or started talking to someone that you were interested in, and what that was like for you?
Yeah. So I kind of held off on dating for about a year. When I first started getting into dating, it was mostly through gay dating apps like Grindr. If there was a lot of fetishization, so people would see me as kind of like this. I don't know. So my experience was kind of like. A lot of men found me attractive. A lot of men were interested in what I had to offer, in the sense of what's different, without getting too graphic. But they were very focused on it, being interested in that aspect. I guess they were pleased with the experience. But it was, for me, it was very uncomfortable still, because I wasn't comfortable with those parts of myself. I found that like other people enjoyed it, and I would almost kind of resent it, because I felt like they liked me for something I didn't really like about myself, and
What do you
wanted to
mind
change.
being more specific? Like, you don't have to if you're not comfortable, but just trying to get like full context of what you mean.
No worries. Yeah, I'm referring to the penis. They liked the whole I look like a girl and I have a penis thing. So,
Was this exclusively gay men?
and no, that was the weirdest part. I wasn't expecting it, but like, they were, I mean, I would never like hook up with, I don't believe in cheating, and I've never been like the other person in any relationship, but a lot of them were married. They had girlfriends. But they were in open relationships, and, the wife had given her full consent, and I was always careful to be like, I need to hear it from your wife, not just from you, because I have trust issues. But I'm sure that's ironic given the title of this video. But yeah, I I basically was people attracted to men were not attracted to me. I used to have a lot of partners casually dating as a male, and none of them were interested in me after a few months of hormones. So yeah, they were mostly, I mean, I guess some of them would identify as bisexual. A lot of them said like, like there's the penis and then there's everything else that is involved with a person, like, so they liked the penis, but they liked everything. They only liked the penis when it was attached to a female package,
Right.
if that makes sense.
So, your current relationship, are you dating a straight man?
Yes.
And they have no idea that you went through a transition?
No. So, I, when we first started dating, so I've always been very, kind of like accepted that, if I want to keep this a secret, I kind of have to sacrifice having a relationship, like a monogamous committed relationship, where I feel it's my responsibility to disclose that. And he pursued me very strongly, and really liked me. And, it was getting harder to come up with excuses for why I couldn't, why I wasn't like willing to be his girlfriend or to get to that level of closeness. And eventually one day I just was like, listen, there's a lot of stuff in my past that I'm not comfortable talking about, and I don't want you to feel like if we get into a relationship, I was hiding it from you. So if you want what you're asking me for, like, you have to accept that, there are things I may not ever feel ready to tell you. And he was like, yeah, I don't care. Like, you don't, and maybe someday, like, you'll feel comfortable telling me and I'll be grateful for that. And
what do you think he thinks you were referring to?
Well, he asked me a lot of questions at first. He was like, are you married? Like, are you, like, do you have a bunch of debt? And I basically just went down the line and I said, like, no, it's not that. No, it's not that. No, it's not that. And he was like, I mean, if it's none of those things, I can't imagine what it would be that would make me feel differently about you. So I know like what he was afraid of, I guess, because those were the things he brought up. But like, I don't really know like what he thinks I was referring to. I was obviously a bit vague. Like, I didn't want to give it away if I was trying not to give it away.
Why, at that point, like, why are you making the conscious decision to just omit that information? Like, are you afraid of losing the relationship, or you're just not ready to talk about it?
No. And, he had actually told me that, like, I usually gauge their sense of politics before, I get close to them. I don't have any interest in dating someone who wouldn't want to be with me if they knew my past. And I think the assumption most people have is that, I'm hiding my past in my life so that I can keep my relationship. And in reality, it's the opposite. I'm hiding my past from my relationship so that I can keep my life. The most direct answer to your question is because there are very high stakes for me if I'm out of the closet, right? Like in my process of transitioning, my landlord tried to evict me from my house. I was fired from my job. I lost pretty much everyone. And, I talk about like living in a different world, and I'm sure people can perceive that like I'm delusional. I live in this reality where I'm a woman, blah, blah, blah. But in a lot of ways, I experience a different world than everyone else because I have a reference for what everyone else experiences, the kind of world they do, because, I used to be a man and live like a normal person. And now, I get stared at in a grocery store. I get treated differently by everyone. One time I was trying to check out in a grocery store and someone was like screaming at me, like, what the fuck are you? And I was just, I was shopping. Like I wasn't, so the stakes for me are huge. If I tell my partner and say, we have a bad breakup, maybe he cheats on me and I won't take him back and he gets mad, and he can, if I tell someone that information about me, they have the power to out me to the world. And now I have to go to, to men's prisons if I'm ever arrested for something. I have to, I whether or not I'm allowed in female spaces is up for debate. So like, it's
a fear, not just of the relationship, but the ripple effect and how it could affect your life in all other areas. So do you have no intention of like ever coming out to anyone in your life?
Not in my relationship. So obviously for the rest of my life, absolutely. Like I don't ever want, my plan is to keep it a secret until I, like to take it to my grave, basically, with the exception of whoever I have a, romantic relationship with. I don't plan on never telling the person I'm dating. I'm just planning on basically waiting until I can trust that person. He does know that I'm intersex. Once things started getting serious with us, I did tell him that like, you have to promise like you'll never tell anyone. But like, it was very emotional. But I told him like basically, I was born with a genetic condition. It's called La Chapelle syndrome. Like I was born basically with ovaries and testes, and that's kind of all I'm comfortable sharing. And if there's anything else you want to know, like you can ask me. And he basically was like, I don't care, like, and in the dating, stage, in the early stages, like he told me like, I'd asked him like, I with other questions like about other politics, but like one of the ones I threw in there was like, would you date a trans woman? Like, and he said like, it wouldn't make a difference to him. So I always knew like, it wouldn't be like I said, I don't have interest in like being with someone who wouldn't accept me. It's just the nature of, the risk that I'm under in my day-to-day life. It's like, I can't give him that power to, expose me to the world if things go wrong in our relationship. So
how long have you guys been dating?
We've been dating about 7 months now.
Is this someone that you would continue a relationship with long-term or even potentially settle down with as a partner?
Potentially, yeah. I mean, obviously I'd like to get to know him a little better, but when things get like, it's debatable, like to what point is it serious, right? But like when things get to that point of seriousness, I would want to tell him,
that was my next question.
The full truth.
Right.
Yeah.
And I mean, so you're intimate with him and you eventually had surgery?
Oh yeah. No,
okay.
I've had it like all of them.
Yeah. Okay. Do you think any part of him suspects this or 0%?
Definitely not. No, he's I mean, I know that sounds confident, but like he has said things and indicated things that, like he, asks me if I'm on like birth control. So like,
Right.
um,
So
yeah.
is that where in your mind is the threshold, right? Because 7 months is obviously not that long to be dating someone, but it's not a significant amount of time. So for people, who are like together and thinking about a future, and they're not, 18 years old, thinking about like, okay, this is the person I want to be with for the rest of my life. If there's not a like, where is the threshold of like, okay, now I'm ready to tell this person, but at that point it's like, well, I've already had them fall in love with me, and it like kind of makes their position a little difficult. Like, how do you sort of deal with that sort of back and forth of like, I obviously need to protect myself, but I also want to protect this person that I care about too, and let them kind of make their own decision.
Absolutely. It's an excellent question and one I've thought about a lot. So I'll answer one part of your question first, and then I'll answer the other. So as far as like time frame, for me, it doesn't matter if it's 2 weeks. It doesn't matter if it's 2 years, at least when considering my safety. So that part of the question, right? Like, my biggest concern is basically getting to know the person well enough that I can trust what they would do when no one's looking. So, are they the type of person that is vindictive? Like, is obviously no one's going to say on a first date, like, yeah, I'm the kind of person that would, do X, Y, Z in the worst case scenario, right? But over time, getting to know a person, like meeting their friends, their family, kind of seeing what they do when they think no one is around, right? Like, you kind of can get a sense of a person's like values, morals, their sense of integrity. And basically that's kind of what I'm looking for. And then the other side of it being, once I do eventually tell him, and again, like I care about this person. I can see myself, being in love with them at some point. And if I'm not already, it's hard to know, but like going into it, like, I don't want to tell that person and have them feel like, the purpose of me keeping the secret was to gain something from them that I didn't think I would have access to if they knew the truth, right? Like, my only concern would be, I think when I tell him, it's very important not to center myself and make it about, oh, I don't want to lose you. I don't want you to hate me. I don't, my plan is when I tell him to, tell him obviously and give him space to decide what he wants to do. It's also why I kind of shared I am intersex, I was born with a different body. I shared that, I think, about like 5 or 6 months into the relationship. So like a month or two ago. And, I also told him before we started dating, hey, eventually I might tell you something that will shock you. And I hope you know that, like, these are the reasons why I didn't tell you. Obviously, like, I want you to forgive me. I want you to trust me. I want you to understand me. I want all of these things. And I'll tell you that just so that you know that, like, I'm not trying to, it's not that I just don't care how you feel and I'm not even emotionally attached to you, whatever you choose makes no difference to me. It's not that. I do love you. I do have all these emotions, but at the same time, I think it's manipulative on my end to cry and tell my sob story about how I'm such a victim and my life has been so unfair. But like, I don't think that's my responsibility. That's for me and my therapist to deal with. For you, like, you need to focus on how you feel, how you want to trust me moving forward. And I would just hope that he understands what was at stake for me and that the reasons I have for not telling him were not about trying to control him or get anything from him, but to protect myself and everything I've sacrificed to get to this point in my life.
Are you afraid though that the more time that passes, will make that explanation murky in a sense, like almost make it appear more deceitful or kind of take it away from that initial reason for not telling him. Because if another year passes or more time, and then it just for him becomes this understanding of you've essentially kept this knowledge for so long, and you are also sort of analyzing me within this time while withholding this information to kind of understand the person I am. Does it just scare you that even if your reason's valid early on of protecting yourself, that if too much time passes, it's just going to just be that much more shocking and potentially cause him to not even see that reason anymore and just feel kind of hurt and deceived?
Absolutely. I'm definitely aware of the, how those things over time can make it more hurtful. And that's why I'm prepared to accept any decision he has, about how he wants to move forward once I disclose that information to him. And, again, I think because I wasn't the one that pursued him or pressured him into being in a relationship, he was the one who really wanted those things with me and communicated how hurt he was and how insufficient he felt because I wasn't willing to accept those things. I guess the only thing I would want him to know, I would say, your hurt feelings are completely valid. I'm sure everyone who's listening to this and hearing my perspective, is probably coming at this thinking I'm one of the worst kind of people to withhold this information. And I can completely understand where that perspective is coming from. I mean, before I, was in the position I'm in, I wouldn't have understood it either. And that's also what motivates me to kind of explain my side of
what
how
also
someone ends up.
what also is preventing you now from telling him when you've told him you're intersex, you've asked him, would you ever date a trans woman? And he's like, yeah, or it wouldn't make a difference to me. After hearing those things and being together for this amount of time, what would stop you now? You kind of know where he aligns, at this point. I assume maybe some family members and friends and whatnot. You probably have a good grasp of who he is as a person. What would still kind of prevent you from doing that? Other than I guess the, general fear, but the way that you're describing it is well, when I get to that point, I will tell him. But it feels I guess with the actual question is, what else do you need from him to be able to trust him enough to tell him?
Yeah. Great question again. What I really need is to witness his behavior and how he reacts to, in a variety of scenarios where he's upset and he's angry. I mean, you can think that you know a person, but I've been through several experiences in my life where you think you know someone and you don't. I'm sure there's validity to him feeling that way, and as well as to the fact that I've kept this from him. But to answer the other part of your question, it's because it's not about rejection. Why don't I just tell him if I know that he wouldn't have cared if I told him from the beginning? It's because it's not about rejection or fear of rejection for me. It's not about, oh no, what if I lose this person? What if he doesn't want me? What if he doesn't date me? It's what if my career is, the career I have is very people based, it's in an aspect sales, and it's all about who and your network and, kind of having conversations with people so that you can help them. And there is a lot of discrimination. I could, there's no way to prove discrimination in a lot of these scenarios when people just think you have a mental disorder and you're delusional and you don't, know who you are. Why would I trust you when it comes to these large financial matters? Mainly what's stopping me is the fear that, if I'm outed, my means of making an income are completely sabotaged, and I basically have to live in the world as a second class citizen. I have to live, in the world I knew before I went stealth, which is what women like me call it when they go into, basically you cut contact with everyone you've ever known in your life. You change your name. I changed my phone number. I basically lived in hiding for, 2 years while I completed my transition and had all the surgeries. And, I haven't talked to my own sisters in 6 years. I don't speak to my father. People who loved me and supported me, I gave it all up because living openly as a trans woman, it impacts every aspect of your life, dealing with the discrimination, dealing with the ignorance that, it was strong enough that I cut contact with people I've known my entire life. And that sacrifice basically means nothing. If I tell the wrong person and he, wants to get revenge on me for something one day. And that's the main outcome that I'm trying to avoid.
We're going to take a quick break from our conversation to tell you about some of our show's sponsors. This month is all about gratitude. And part of gratitude, I think, is being able to say thank you to people who provide support to you, relationships that really help you be the best you. So for me right now, I want to say that I'm thankful for my relationship with my therapist. There's a lot of people I can thank, but specifically here today, I want to say thank you to my therapist. This is someone that I have grown with over the past couple years, and I'm very grateful for the relationship that we have formed. And a lot of times it's hard to acknowledge the progress that you are making in this crazy, busy world that we live in. But for me, I know my therapist is good at helping me progress, but also helping remind me that oftentimes I am doing the best that I can. And it is really important to get that support sometimes. So here's your reminder to say thank you to someone in your life. And if you are someone who is interested in forming such a relationship with a therapist or starting therapy in general, then I definitely recommend BetterHelp. BetterHelp is entirely online, so it's designed to be super flexible to fit into your busy schedule. And to get started, all you have to do is fill out a brief questionnaire, and you will get paired with a licensed professional therapist. The thing is, if you feel like for some reason this might not be the right therapist for you to kind of form that long-term relationship, then you can easily switch and try a different therapist until you find someone that you're truly comfortable with. So let the gratitude flow with BetterHelp. And you can visit betterhelp.com/OPL today, and you can get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/OPL, and you'll get 10% off your first month. And I think with this holiday season coming up, it's a time where a lot of us reflect on the year and the year coming up. And it is a great time, I could say this from experience, a great time to start therapy, to start having those conversations with yourself and with someone else. So try BetterHelp. The holidays are upon us, and for a lot of us, that means maybe more get-togethers, gathering with friends, family events, work events. What I'm trying to say is it might mean more nights out with drinks involved. Well, I want to tell you about a game-changing product that is perfect for this scenario. It is called ZBiotics Pre-Alcohol Probiotic Drink, and it is the world's first genetically engineered probiotic. Invented by PhD scientists to help tackle the rough mornings after drinking, I can say from experience, I do not recover the same. I could have a couple drinks. I just do. It's harder for me the next morning. It's rougher, but ZBiotics has changed that for me. So here's how it works. When you drink, alcohol gets converted into a toxic byproduct in the gut, and it's this byproduct, not dehydration, that's to blame for that rough next day. And pre-alcohol produces an enzyme to break this product down. So if you remember to make ZBiotics your first drink of the night and of course drink responsibly, then you will feel your best tomorrow. And this is something that this is a product that we have brought on tour with us. This is a product that I will have on me this holiday season for sure, because I have truly felt the difference the next day when I do have ZBiotics first. And if you want to try it, you can head to zbiotics.com/OPL and you can learn more, and you can get 15% off your first order when you use the code OPL at checkout. Here's the thing. If you're like me and you're skeptical about this, or you're thinking this sounds too good to be true, the good news is that ZBiotics is backed with a 100% money back guarantee. So you get to try it for yourself. And if you're not a fan, you're not feeling the effects, they will give you your money back, no questions asked. So the best way to see if this is a fit for you is to give it a try. So head to zbiotics.com/OPL. You will get 15% off that first order when you use the code OPL at checkout. Now back to our guest. Wow. So cutting off contact with family members, you mentioned they were supportive. So it's not easy to cut it off because they weren't not supporting your transition. You just, what is it? You just don't want people to have this information. Like, does your family know that you transitioned?
Oh, they know, and they know why I don't speak to them anymore. I mean, they were supportive of that as well. I told them and I can get into what made me decide to go stealth. Obviously, there was a whole process of, experiencing. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I guess why? I guess can you give more context in terms of like cutting off relationship with family members who were supporting you?
Yeah. All it takes is one person to out you, the safest way to live your life, keeping this secret. And if you have the privilege, obviously, of passing and of having people assume that you're female, all it takes is one person. And, the safest way to go about that, is to, cut contact. And, my sisters, if they want to contact me, they don't know how to. They know that my mom's the only one I still speak with, but literally no one in my life knows about my past. They don't know what my name used to be. They don't know anything about me. So like,
and are there like friends and coworkers who think the you who was a man has just disappeared?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I've logged into my old Facebook before, and there were people messaging me wondering if I had died, wondering what happened to me. Like, they saw that I had posted that I had come out and like as a trans woman, but like they never saw the finished product. And
right.
I live in the same city. So it's a very surreal experience, but I have run into people that I would have described as my best friends, people I've climbed and had crazy adventures with, and they don't have any idea that it's me, and they treat me like a stranger. And it's, a few of those scenarios I did like deliberately set up just to test, okay, am I, at the point where I'm unrecognizable enough that I could, kind of live openly as this new person now.
So did you cut ties with your family because just to protect the secret? Like they didn't necessarily do anything wrong?
Yeah, no, they didn't.
Well, if they know, I guess we're just trying to understand, like, I guess what's like the tactic of protecting yourself in that sense where like, so your family knows you fully transitioned, or do you mean that they know you did, but also didn't see the finished product? Like they could not point you out on the street and say that it's you?
Yes.
Okay.
And also like, it's not even a matter of, I think that they would do it. It's, what if they did it on accident without even meaning to, right? What if it slips out?
Is that worth it for you to not talk to your family?
Absolutely. Yeah. I think one would question if they don't know what it's like to live as an openly trans woman. It doesn't matter how passing you are, how beautiful you are. People don't see you as anything more than a controversy. They don't see the person that you are. Like they see you as an idea, as a concept. And dealing with the discrimination, like I said, I sued my old landlord for fair housing discrimination and won. Like I've experienced what it's like to try to find a place to live, to try and find opportunities, to try and make friends. And yes, it's nice to have a close relationship with your family members, but I would hope that would maybe, paint the picture to people that don't understand how someone could make the decision I would, that like, this is how bad it was living openly, living openly as who I was, that I would even cut off my own family members, my best friends, my entire support system, just so that I could, live life like a normal person who isn't, up for debate.
Wow. Yeah, no, I mean, that does give it a lot of context. And is there a world where you believe you could have it all and you could have relationships, in-person relationships with your family again, that you could be in a relationship where the person knows? Or do you think you'll essentially also be living this stealth life for the rest of time?
Oh, I mean, absolutely. That world is the world I wish I was living in. I mean, it doesn't bring me any joy to keep this secret. It doesn't bring me any joy to like have to pretend like I'm not someone I'm proud of being. It's just that I'm not in control of whether or not that world exists. That is completely outside my control. I mean, I don't determine what public opinion is. I don't determine who's prejudiced and who is willing to discriminate and who isn't. I mean, I'm trying to adapt to the world that I live in, not the world I wish I was living in.
Right. So how do you gauge, like, because it must be very difficult to gauge how much you can trust a person who you've been dating for 7 months, and to the point where you have your family who they know you've transitioned and they're supportive, and you're like, it's not even worth it to even take the risk of them knowing, so I'm just going to cut them off completely. How do you then place trust in a partner, like over your family who has been supportive of you, and that like they know, and you know how they would react, but you're like, that's too many people to know, so forget it. And like, so how do you kind of, get to the point where you will actually trust a partner?
Yeah, it's like the question you asked before, where your answer was like to see them react in situations, or are they vindictive? But yeah, like how will it feel like you're always chasing that moment? Will it ever arrive where you say, I am now actually comfortable telling this person, or could that potentially just never come?
I don't see it not ever coming. I mean, if my own feelings were the only thing I was considering, yeah, like I would love to just never tell them. But obviously there's another person and their right to choose, their own right to their own autonomy. And for that reason alone, there's no way I could keep the secret forever. I'm basically keeping the secret until I can feel confident that they wouldn't out me in retaliation for the fact that I didn't tell them sooner, right? And if I got to that point.
Sorry, like, is there, I know, because we just kind of keep coming back to this question, but like, is there almost a hypothetical you could give, like a made up scenario of, I guess we're just trying to understand, and I'm sure it's something you're trying to even understand yourself as the person in this situation, where something you witness would be enough for you to feel like, okay, this is a moment where I can now share with this person the truth.
Yeah, I definitely have hypotheticals. Like, I don't know, say that if I observed him doing the kind of things that I've done, right? Like I've been in a situation where like, just as an example, right? Like there was once a time that I was in a position where I almost, not almost cheated, but I had the opportunity to cheat on a boyfriend. This is a boyfriend that I still had the penis. So, there wasn't any secret keeping there. But I had like nowhere to go. I had just moved out of my old place. I was moving into a new place. He was busy and didn't want to spend New Year's Eve with me. That was the one night I had nowhere to stay. Where I live, it's very cold. It's freezing. So it was between sleeping in my car or sleeping at this guy's house that I was like in love with for a long time, but he never wanted to be with me because of that. You know, I ended up staying at his house. He hadn't seen me in months and saw that I had changed, I guess. So he was suddenly very interested, and I had feelings for this person, and I was really angry with my boyfriend. And I was like, I'm going to cheat if I don't leave right now. So I spent the entire night in my car, sleeping in the freezing cold. And, you know, I could have gotten away with it, but if I wanted to, but I didn't, because even if I was considering breaking up with my boyfriend, I didn't want to put him through that. I didn't want, it's something I don't think you should even do to your enemies. So for instance, I was still in contact with my sisters at this point. So I remember even texting them, this happened. I never told my boyfriend, this is why I didn't, this is what I did that night. Right. Like, so I didn't want to make him feel guilty. So that's like, you mentioned the hypothetical, right? Like, that's like an example of like someone displaying a certain type of character.
Right.
I think if, for instance, I knew that when no one was looking and he didn't think anyone, say I go through his phone and cheating is one example, right? But I saw him turning down offers from other women, even though I never would have found out, right? Like, I've never gone through his phone. I'm not saying I would do that. I'm just saying, like, that's a hypothetical scenario. So there are kind of indicators I'm looking for to be like, okay, this shows me what kind of character this person has. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like, is that an indicator though that they wouldn't have that sort of reaction? Like, I would still be kind of like, I don't know.
I feel like you'll almost never be certain, like, in a way, which is scary to think about.
I'm sure there are people that are faithful to their partner that would still, that are like transphobic, that, like, I don't know. So, that's just a very difficult thing. But, I think I'm just kind of, I guess it always kind of comes back to this thing of, you're waiting for this moment of like, I need to trust this person. I want to see how they react. And, I'm worried about their reaction to this information. But there are people in your life who have the information and haven't abused that information, but you're still kind of like, I'm not going back to that. Like, I'd rather just live this new life completely isolated from anyone I used to know.
Right. And that's why when I first decided to keep the secret, the plan was never to enter into a serious relationship where not telling them something like that would be a betrayal. And
have you guys ever discussed like children? Has that ever come up?
Oh yeah. I told him day one, like I not with telling him everything, but like, he knows that I can't have children. He did ask me about the birth control at one point, like, so that, happened after, but,
okay.
Right.
Like he's definitely eventually that's not a hard secret for me to tell eventually. Like, I don't have to trust him that if he tells everyone I'm, infertile, right? Like, it's not going to, ruin my life if he tells people that I used to live as a man.
Right. Before we wrap up this interview, we do have one more sponsor to tell you about. If you guys are like me, you will get in dinner ruts. Nothing is worse than a dinner rut. Nothing is going through the week having no idea what you're going to eat for dinner, stressing over it, or the solution is this: keep eating the same thing over and over. That's not exciting. You want to add some excitement to your week. You want to look forward to your dinners, and you want to enjoy these meals. Well, Cook Unity makes that possible. With Cook Unity, you get an endless variety of restaurant quality food from award-winning chefs delivered to your door. So award-winning chefs are actually designing the meals that come, and it is a fraction of the cost of what you'd be spending on takeout. There are over 350 meals to choose from, and I'm just going to go through my order list here, and I will tell you some of the things that I've had in the recent weeks. Some of the things I've had the last 2 weeks that I really enjoyed: seared shrimp and quinoa bowl, grilled mojo de ajo flank steak. Yeah, that pronunciation was good. I know. Enchiladas. I got a coconut wasabi cod. I got a rainbow grain salad with grilled salmon. These dishes are so good, so good. And apart from just being good, they are effortless to make and they require no cleanup. Subscriptions start for as low as $11 per meal. It's a commitment-free subscriptions. You can skip deliveries, you could pause, you could cancel anytime. So this is really worth trying out to see if it's a fit for you. So you can head to cookunity.com/OPL or enter code OPL before you check out for 50% off your first week. That's 50% off your first week by using code OPL or going to cookunity.com/OPL. Highly suggest you go check this out. Just check out the menu at the very least. See if anything catches your eye. Take it from there. But this, I'm eating Cook Unity every week, and it has been an absolute game changer for me. Now back to our show. I guess my question is just like, how do you deal with this, and how do you manage all of this? I mean, the stress alone of being a trans woman, and all the examples you gave, and like you said, just being viewed as like a controversy. I think that's a really powerful way to put it. But in general, just so many aspects of your life have to be controlled, or you're withholding things, or forming relationships but not able to be truthful, or fear of losing your job. Just that just has to be an incredible weight on you at all times. How do you manage this day to day?
Oh, absolutely. It's, I have a good therapist. I mean, there's like 3 people in my life that I know. The friend that I had mentioned for my story earlier, my therapist, and my mother, those are the only people in my life that I'm in contact with that know this. And I do my best to manage it, but it's very much the lesser of two evils. It's not like something I can just, I deal with the dysphoria. I deal with, how can people not know? How can, I look myself in the mirror and I see transphobic comments from other people, and I'm like, look at my arms, look at my, look at all the things that make me tell, right? And the worst part is I don't have support. I don't have anyone I can talk to about what it's like to go through that. Even people in my real life, like I can't tell you how many times, like I've been in a crowd of people or a group of people, and they've started just talking shit about trans people and saying it to me, like as if I'm, like they look me in the eyes and be like, oh, these people are so delusional. Oh, like, ha, like they'll point out another trans person and be like, ha ha. So like, she thinks no one can tell, blah, blah, blah. We can always tell. Like, and I'm now looking at them and being like, wow, so you wouldn't accept or love the real me. And now I can't even tell you, this is why I don't want to be close to you anymore. This is why I'm distancing myself from you. It's very overwhelming to have to keep that secret. But again, if I have to choose between, dealing with the inner turmoil or dealing with the external limitations to my freedom, I'm going to choose to, cry in a nice house because
Right.
I can afford to live in one, and I don't have to deal with, people debating whether or not I should be using the men's room when I look the way that I do now. And, it's the lesser of two evils.
Are you going to try to build a support system, or is that just something that you think is too risky to build?
It's absolutely too risky. I mean, I have a support system as a person, and you have to understand, like, it's not like every day I have to confront this, right? Like I look quite normal. I go through the world being treated quite normal. Like it's obviously something that comes up and weighs on me, but it's not something that like, I deal with every day, if that makes sense. So I deal with it to an extent, right? But like, I don't think it's worth the risk of having people know and the consequences of being trans are bad enough. The consequences of people finding out that you've been hiding it from the world. People will think you're a sociopath, a psychopath, you're delusional, you're, selfish, and you've tricked everyone. And, there's violence, like there's a lot at risk. And I would understand someone not understanding why I would feel so strongly about this if they've never lived in the world that I have, where people scream at you for existing and people, treat you like a completely different person than you have the merits of to be treated as. Like I am an expert in my field. I am someone who is qualified in a variety of circumstances, that when people know that one detail about me, and I know it's a big detail, but when they know that, it outweighs everything that I could possibly have to offer as a human being. It's always at least 51% of, and even if they support you, you're now the token friend that they have to. They either love you for being trans or they hate you for being trans, but they don't see past the trans and see you. And to me, that's what's most important, is being seen for who I am. And to me, the details of my physical deformities or the history of the biological expression of my sex-linked traits, those don't define who I am. I mean, when I die, right, people aren't going to be missing my corpse. They're going to be missing the person that they talked to and that they got to know. A lot of people think that, like, when a trans person says, I'm a woman, that we disagree about the definition of the word woman. In reality, we're disagreeing on the definition of the word I. When I say I am a woman, I'm not saying I have a female body. I'm saying the part of me that goes away when I die, despite the fact that my corpse doesn't lose a single gram of weight. That part of me I experience as a female. And the only way to live authentically without being ostracized by the world is to look and present in a way where my outside matches my inside. So that's ultimately my biggest priority, is being seen for who I am, because I've tried to live life as the best life a man could have, and I wanted to kill myself because I was living a lie every day. And even though one could argue that I'm lying about my body or my past, I don't have to pretend to be someone else. I can just be myself. And instead of people thinking that I'm flamboyant and I'm trying too hard and I'm obnoxious and shoving my gayness in people's face, people just think I'm normal and they like me for who I am. And that for me outweighs, everything I would need a support system to deal with, as for choosing the lesser of two evils.
Wow. Well, we honestly can't thank you enough for, I think, just how in depth that was, and just like understanding now the way that you're living your life, and with the fear and with the potential risk, and for you to come on and be so vulnerable and just really talk us and the listeners through all of that, and just what you truly feel and what you're dealing with. We thank you for choosing us with that story, and we hope in some way it was good for you to be able to talk about that so openly. Obviously not something that you do or are able to do with many people in your life that you come across. So hopefully it was a good experience for you as well.
Absolutely. I really appreciate the platform. It's part of what motivates me, is I don't have the ability to share, unless it's anonymous. So I really appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah. No. And again, thank you for just being so open, and, obviously you're not a stranger to the understanding that putting a story like this out there is going to be controversial in its own right, and people are going to have all sorts of different opinions around it. But I think, this is your truth that you're living. This is the experience. This is one that you're still, figuring out how to navigate. And I just think it's important to hear that perspective and your story. So really just thank you again.
Thank you. I definitely understand I'm putting myself in a vulnerable position. I can't imagine what the comments are going to say. And I'm sure there's nothing I could say in the context of this phone call to change the fact that people have made up their minds before. And I respect that. I understand, coming from a different experience, why they would feel the way they feel. I hope that even if they don't agree with me, maybe they can just understand what drives a person to making the decisions I have. And, even if they don't agree, I hope maybe at least they can just respect my humanity in this.
Yeah, for sure.
No, exactly.
And again, thank you so much for taking time today. We really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you for the opportunity.
No
Yes,
problem.
of
Have a
course.
great rest of your day.
Thank you. You too.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
It's so unfortunate, like, because I agree with what she's saying, in that I think that definitely in this time, trans people do deal with a lot of like roundabout, like, oh, okay. Like now when people find out, it's like, oh, okay. Like, you're just whatever. And just like eggshells. And now I'm treated completely differently and whatever.
Yeah, I think all those, what she views as risks are valid.
Yeah. The thing that's so unfortunate to me is like, as a man, you went through all these things to make yourself more masculine looking, and like basically hated that because you're like hiding in plain sight and you're like, I don't really feel. And then once it's like, okay, I'm a trans woman, and I'm just saying that does so much for me because I don't have to hide anymore. This is like who I am, this is how I feel. And then now it just sort of feels like a similar sort of situation now where it's a different thing.
I think the logistics of it seem similar, but like she said, for her, like it's her lying to other people, but not living a lie. I guess that's the real difference here. Like as a man, it's like I'm going out of I'm rock climbing. I'm becoming this masculine person, not because I want to, not because this is who I truly feel I am, but just to mask this for other people. And now, like as a trans woman, she doesn't have to do that. Like she is, like she said, like she's living her days as a woman.
Right.
This is ultimately, that is what she
But
wanted.
that doesn't mean that she's not living a lie.
Well,
like you're
but
living a lie.
By
but you're
doing that, you then have to kind of construct a lie in a lot of cases, or at least withhold the information.
That's what I'm saying. There's just a different lie that we have to live now, which at the end of the day, I'm sitting here. I obviously could never imagine what it's like to have these experiences. So it's very hard for me to understand that. And I'm not trying to be like, this is the way you should do it. And blah, blah, blah. Like, I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying it's unfortunate to just for anybody to be living with a lie or feeling like I can't tell this or I can't fully connect to someone because I'm worried about whatever. And I think rightfully so. I get why trans people are worried about telling people that. I totally understand that because people have bad reactions. I know there's some people out there being like, you should know on the first date. They would like, I don't necessarily agree with that. Like some people are fucking crazy and like violent and like whatever. Like that's scary. But that fear to me, if it was me, would never go away because like you said, as time goes, does that just make the bomb bigger?
That's right. And that's what it keeps coming down to is like you said, like if you're in that position, we can't even pretend to know, like, do you tell a stranger right away or is there just too much fear of a reaction? But then when, how, like what ultimately leads to that?
And the other thing is too, cutting off your family because there's just a non-zero chance that they could out you. They have my secret. If they tell people, then I'm fucked. So like cutting them out completely, like that's a big length you're willing to go. And I'm not trying to say that, like, that's why I was asking, do you feel it's worth it? She says yes. So the answer is yes for her. Yeah. But with that, then it's confusing why you would tell essentially a stranger that you have this secret, because there are people you've known your entire life that have been supportive. They have the information. They've never abused it. And you're willing to cut them off. Why would you not be willing to cut off this newer person in your life? Like if they have the information, why would you not eventually one day be like, this is not worth it either. Fuck this. And that's why I was asking too. Like,
Or does
are you
it
trying to build?
come down to that eventually? Like, I can't find this moment, so now I'm just going to break up with this person and never tell them. And
Or
then
just
you hope
continue.
it's not a sequence of, right. Well, which she acknowledges and says that shouldn't be the case. And for her, she thinks couldn't be the case, but right. Do you like,
Yeah.
it's like a series of really intense crossroads that like, as you develop relationships with anyone that you're going to come to. And, I've never heard that before. Like that kind of stealth lifestyle or having to cut off even supportive relationships for the simple fact that like,
There's a possibility.
there's just someone that they know, or we might be hanging out and they take a picture of me and someone notices it, and it's
And I know
Just-
that
wow.
there will be people out there that are just like, this is completely 100% selfish and blah, 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 which like, I get why people are going to say that. But at the same time, this is a very difficult thing.
well, it's like it is selfish. Like it is. It's like it's selfish and it's wrong. And like she even knows that.
Right.
But then it's like, well, but this is why I feel I have to do a selfish wrong
Right.
thing. So it's
yeah, like look how much I'm struggling. It's making me do crazy shit. It's making me cut off my family. That's how
doesn't mean it's fair to the person. And like for him,
Exactly.
who knows? Like
yes.
a lot of people can say it wouldn't bother me if I was dating a trans person. And then the person you've been dating for 7 months or a year or however much time passes sits down and says, oh, by the way, haven't told you this. I'm trans. Are you going to have that same ideology
Yeah.
and mentality? I don't know.
Because that's different. Because then someone could be like, well, that feels strange because I felt like I knew you and I felt
Even
like
if
we
you,
weren't
and
lying
if you
to each
are
other.
someone who, this is where it's so complicated, because if you are someone, if this boyfriend is someone
Yeah,
that
and
it
no
truly
longer-
wouldn't bother, then you're like, you would think they would say like, if you told me from the beginning, wouldn't have had a problem.
Not only that,
But they're like, but there was so much risk to tell you at the beginning,
But-
so I'm telling you now. But then it's like, but you waited to tell me, so now I feel like it's deceitful, and now I'm not okay with it, even
Yeah.
though I would have been okay with it.
every single way that you cut this is a very difficult thing to deal with. But I think for somebody who has no issue with this, it's like you get to that point and then your partner tells you I'm trans and you're like, well, I don't, now it's no longer about transgender or whatever.
Yeah.
It's like, it's just the fact that like you didn't tell me, you know, like you just chose to admit that and essentially put up this act. You know, like what if I did ask you, or like you did even asked me if I was cool with that, and I said yes, and you still didn't tell. Like that would feel so weird to feel like that.
Like
you know?
that would have been the moment potentially.
Yeah,
to
like
say.
that would just be strange. Like if it would be like finding out you're adopted when you're 40. It would be like, I'm not gonna like go in my room and like slam the door and cry, but like, what the hell? Why? Like that feels weird that you would like go
yeah.
forever at that point. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and I don't know if this, scenario that she has in her mind of a circumstance that's going to reveal this man's true character enough for her to feel comfortable, but like you're dealing with an unknown no matter what, no matter how well you know a person, to break that sort of news, and just with how complicated and convoluted the whole thing is, like it will always be an unknown how this person will react or anyone will
Yeah,
react.
and that's fucking terrifying.
And unknown is always going to equal risk to some degree.
course.
So it's not just getting to a point of 100% this feels risk free. It's just what risk am I willing to endure to tell this person and continue a relationship? I
and I
don't
also
know.
like I just also want to say to people who are like going to be in the comments and shit, like no one should act like they have the right answer here. Like it's it's easy to be like, you should do it always on the first day, you should do it then, or like wait a week or I don't know, whatever fucking timelines. But like at the end of the day, no matter what, it's so hard to do that, because we live in a world where it is fucking dangerous, bro. It's dangerous to be transgender, straight up. Like it is. It's like a dangerous thing to be. Like people hate you for whatever fucking reason, blindly, like for these things. So it's like, think about that before you write a comment, and just have some empathy towards someone who kind of feels like, yeah, it's easy to think that even people who are supportive will act correctly when I give them this information and it's kind of like confirmed. But you never know. And you don't know where that could go. And when other people find out, like, and when people who are just like, I'm trans, this is where I am, whatever, blah, blah, blah. Like, some people just write that off as like, good for them. Like they should, whatever. But you're not grasping like how crazy it is that they're doing that. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? That they're like, yes, this is me. Like, bro, you're standing up in front of a ton of people, especially in this country, who fucking hate them for I don't know what fucking reason. So it's wild to be like, yeah, I'm just going to live my truth and I'm just going to be a transgender person like out loud. Like that's an extremely brave thing to do. Like I know that some people are like, oh yeah, everyone's brave, but like, no, it is, bro. There are people who fucking hate these people who will just kill them, who will just beat them up and just like fucking, you know what I mean? That will happen just for existing. And they're like, yep, I'm that. It's hard. Yeah. It's hard. There's a lot of things that go into that. And especially the other things that she was mentioning, like your job, your this, like people will treat you differently. People lie about like stuff that you think they shouldn't lie about all the time. Sometimes when people get like cancer or something and they get sick, they don't tell people. Mm. And then that gets out and then they're fucking pissed off. Like, I don't fucking need everyone like being real nice to me and like saying they're sorry and doing this, whatever. Like, I don't want to fucking tell people shit like that. But it's easy for everyone else to be like, well, everyone's going to be supportive of you. Everyone's going to help you, whatever. I don't want that.
Yeah.
Like it's everyone's personal experience. So like before you get in the comments and you go crazy, like just have some empathy and understand that this is a difficult situation. I myself can obviously... I know, like, listening to things that she said, I don't agree with every single thing that she said. And, I can sit here in my very, like, nothing's ever happened to me lifestyle and be like, yeah, it's probably easier if you just went like this. But I'm not living this fucking lifestyle, bro. I'm not going through it like this, in this way. So I can't fucking say what the right answer is.
Yeah.
There are things
it's also not the point of this conversation or the show or anything or the comment section to find an answer. It's like... This conversation we're having, we could talk the rest of the day going back and forth about what we just heard. And that's the point. Like now we've been injected with a perspective and insight, like really in depth and vulnerably about someone going through this situation that we can't understand, that a lot of other people are also going through. And like, at the end of the day, that's like, now we have that piece of knowledge, but we're not here to like, I don't know.
And the point is to spread awareness too. And I wanted to say all that just to try to inject some empathy into the situation, because if you have empathy, you can, like, I could sit here right now and be like, you should tell the guy.
It's wrong to lie to a guy.
It's wrong. It's wrong to lie. It's whatever. Like you can say that in a vacuum. It's wrong to lie, especially for that long, especially about something, I guess, so serious or whatever, especially when you know that they'll probably react to whatever. I can say that, but it's more complicated than that. It just fucking is. And if we lived in a world that had some empathy and everyone wasn't just like, nope, lying's wrong, that's it, next. Like, if you had more empathy, then this wouldn't even exist. She wouldn't even feel like I have to lie. She wouldn't even feel like that. Like, it would just be like, all right, I could just tell people because I'm not scared of any sort of crazy consequences that could happen here. So let's fucking have some empathy towards these situations, all right? That's all. All right. I just blacked out back there. But if you want to be a guest on our show, hit us up. Our email is oplpodcast@gmail.com.
Yeah. And we say this at the end of a lot of episodes, but just thank you to the guest. This person cut off communication with her own family, and she just came on our show to reveal everything.
Another thing
that's crazy.
Another thing that I wouldn't have done. No, that I can't wrap my mind around why you would do that. But it's not me. It's not me.
And that is, so just thank you to all the guests, because the show is literally nothing without people willing to do that and share their perspective. So we do have to respect that. But yes, send us an email if you want to be on the show. You could follow us on Instagram, TikTok @OPL Podcast. You could support at patreon.com/OPL show. And that is it.
See you guys next time.